Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak about the very heartbreaking topic of witchcraft accusations in Ghana. So, this practice has been prevalent for decades in the country, mostly affecting aged women, particularly in the northern part of the country. They are the real victims. So, these women endure torture. They are driven out of their communities. They live in seclusion, suffering severe human rights violations and abuses, which, it's a stark contrast to the values of justice, human dignity, and equity that Ghana represents. Now, in Ghana, although we would hear stories about these things happening and efforts by some NGOs and then civil society to deal with it was not until 2020 when a 90-year-old woman was beaten to death in the full glare of the public that several religious organizations, NGOs, and individuals like myself got the urge to go ahead and advocate and write stories and push for government to take decisions that lead to an end to these abuses and accusations. So, in the video that was circulated online about this incident, this woman was being beaten, and there was sort of a community gathering, and no one questioned it, no one asked questions, no one spoke for her. And so she was manhandled until she died by youth in the community. You had opinion leaders who were in the video, you had people who were actually urging this young lady on to beat this woman to death. And mind you, there's a 90-year-old woman, she's frail. And that is what happened. So, and this practice is deeply rooted in cultural practices and superstition. So, in many cases, someone faces a challenge, an unexplained event, and or they just have a dream about someone, and then the vulnerable people or individuals become targets. So the dream, you have an issue with them, they feel that they want to get back at you, and then they just come out and accuse you, and then you're not even given the right to explain yourself. You're just gone like that. Now, these women who are mostly old and frail run to seek shelter at what we would call the alleged witches' camps in Ghana. But those who are unable to, like this 90-year-old woman, are beaten to death. Now, we have quite a number of these witches' camps in Ghana. We have some at Busheun, we have some at Gambaga, we have some at Mani. So, and these are scattered across the northern part of Ghana. We have more than 10 or 15 of these witches' camps in Ghana. And these camps at this moment house about 500 of these women who have been accused of witchcraft. The stories you hear when you visit these camps are depressing, and I'll share some of them with you. So, there was once I was interacting with one of these women in the camps at Gushe when she says her rival, she dreamed that this woman was chasing her in the dream, wakes up and accuses this woman of witchcraft. And she was not given the chance to explain herself, the opportunity to be heard. She was just chased out of the community. In fact, she was almost being lynched to death. They had to take her children, sensing danger, to take her to these witches' camps where she now feels is quite a safe haven for her because no one comes to accuse her. She's already in that clock where they call a witch. So she's in the midst of people who are like her. And so she feels a lot more safer. There was also the story about a lady who had been nominated to be the district chief executive of a community. Now, because she's a woman, the women felt threatened that a woman was going to lead the community. So they sort of ganged up and then they accused this woman of witchcraft. Now, the good thing about this woman's case is that because she's educated and she has money and wielded some power, she got the police involved and was able to silence these men and had the police to deal with them. She may have dealt with them, but you see, that stigma always remains that this lady has once been accused of witchcraft. So imagine if she didn't have that power or that influence or the funds. She would have just also been accused and been in that secluded community. The camps are mostly run by traditional priests who have sometimes been accused of some form of human rights abuses, because when these women are taken to these camps, from what we hear, as to whether or not a person is guilty or not guilty depends on some rituals. So the priest kills a fowl, and depending on which side the fowl lies, the person is either guilty or not guilty. So what we hear is that if the fowl lies on the right side, then the woman may not be guilty or may not be a witch. But if the fowl mistakenly falls on the left side, then you're indeed a witch. So these are the dynamics that happen. Now, one thing we should know also is that these camps are not well taken care of. They lack certain basic amenities. They lack water. In fact, the structures in itself are dilapidated. On one time on my journey to the Gushe Witches camp, we had to go through um the forests, weeds, and it had rained and the road was unmotorable. Because, not just unmotorable, the floods have taken over. And this is just, I think, about a day or two after the rain. So imagine if the women had to go for food, then they would have to stay back because the roads are unmotorable. They have to go through floods to go for food. And that is very bad for the health of these women and even their safety and security. Some lack schools, some lack certain basic amenities which they should be having in these camps. Now, on one time when I visited these camps, I had to ask these women how they managed to feed, and one of the ladies told me, well, they are unable to even go to the market because they are stigmatized against. And when they get to the market, the women do not want to sell to them. And in most cases, so they actually don't even have the money to buy these food items. And so they wait till the market women have closed, and then the leftovers they leave in the market, these are what they go in for, bring them back to the butcher's camps, work on them, and then they're able to feed themselves without these leftovers from the market. These are leftovers which should have been thrown to the dustbin or anything, but because of their situation, they cannot easily mingle. They do not have the resources, and so they have to go for these leftovers to feed themselves. Now, the situation doesn't only even affect these women, it also affects children because these women are accused and they are old and frail, they need someone in the camps to take care of them. And who else to do that than their children or grandchildren? And if these most of these children are young, and when they get to the camps, they are also branded as coming from the witches camp or coming from the family of witches, and so they do not have access to good education. Some don't even go to school at all because they say that the closest place to go to school is really far. They will have to walk for miles before they get there. So they don't feel that it's inclusive enough for them to go to school. And for some who are willing to, they do not have the resources. And for others who even have the resources and are willing to, the stigma is just too much. They are forced to stay indoors and just take care of their frail mothers or grandmothers. Now, I once met this young lady, Charity, who I interacted with, and she tells me, well, that's a situation that she fell into. Charity was just 16 years when I interacted with her. She doesn't have any form of education. She wants to go into a skilled profession. Even that, where she needs just around $500 to $600, she can't afford it. So she's just waiting there, no skill, no education. And this is going to lead to a continued life of economic deprivation because she cannot work. She doesn't have any skill, any education to even make enough money to take care of herself and her mother, who is old and in this scam. I must say that government organizations and non-governmental organizations, governments, previous governments, and even now have made efforts to close down witches scams or deal with the situation and all. I remember that in December 2014, the then Minister for Gender and Social Protection had disbanded the Bunyasi witches camp, which was located in the central Gonja district in the upper regions now, and tried to actually reintegrate the women in the communities. But this did not seem to work because the women had that stigma of being witches. And so when they got into the communities, the community members were not willing to accommodate them. And for those who were even willing, they did not have any skill. And so we're hearing that some ran to the camps because they felt that their lives were threatened. They've also been like I mentioned, efforts to close down these camps. But there's also the issue about the fact that these are deeply rooted cultural practices. You cannot just close down the camps, because if you close down the camps, people would be doing this in secrecy. They would be accusing people. They may not just be killing them, but they'll be doing them underground, and this might lead to a worse situation. So we need people, the community members, to be educated instead of just closing down the camps without any education on why they do not need to accuse people of witchcraft. Still on efforts, you know that in Ghana in July 2023, our parliament passed the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2022, which bans the practice of witch doctors and witch finders, which also prohibits the declaration or accusation or labeling of someone as a witch. Um, Although many felt that this was going to be a good law that they felt would deal with the situation, our president at the time did not assent to this because he cited constitutional issues. He said it had cost implications. He also raised concerns about the bill's preparation. Now, since then, we've not heard much about this bill, but we know that we have a new government in now, and we wait to see the action that's going to be taken by this government to help deal with the situation of alleged witches, witches camps, and witchcraft accusations in Ghana. Thank you.